Welcome to my humble little office. My name is R. Keith Andrews. I'm a spiritual guide and paranormal adept. The journey continues today on January 28th, 2022 at approximately 1:20 p.m. PST. Things have been, to say the least, intriguing. Society has taken an interesting turn, and we are now starting to see evidence of major portions of society that are being misunderstood as minor points of positions in society starting to band together to actually turn society back around. Now, this is a fantastic thing. I have misread some of the groups and their intentions, but then I never was a political individual to start with, at least not this lifetime. Tried that way back in the Roman Empire. But suffice it to say, something that I do want to address. Okay, I mentioned that working together, we can make this world a better world for virtually everybody. Now, here's the thing. Okay, I came back to this world for one primary reason, and that was to correct a couple of oversights. But the primary reason, in all fairness, was to simply let people know, let everyone in existence know, that working together, we can make this a better world for virtually everyone. Now, I did it. I was talking yesterday or the day before, a few days back, anyway, about the value of the truckers that are out there they're not being listened to. But here's another concept that got dropped in my lap. We have roughly, and my numbers may be off, but I understand there's about a 1,900 kilometer long convoy of truckers going across Canada right now. Okay. Now, with that in mind, given a very poorly estimated 70-foot long vehicle, you double it to give room for you double that length of vehicle to give room to account for room for maneuvering, for braking time, this sort of thing, for safe driving. Now, from all I've been able to gather, this convoy is very peaceful, obeying traffic laws, which is fantastic. Remember what I said, you must follow the laws of the land in which you are. Now, here's the thing that's being somewhat overlooked. Okay, you put 1,900 kilometers. And if I did my math correctly, and don't just take my word for it, do your own calculations, please. But as near as I can figure, this is something in the neighborhood of 44,000 vehicles, all traveling the same direction in a peaceful convoy. Now, we know that every trucker out there is not the same color. They are not the same gender. They are not the same. They do not vote the same. They do not have the same health concerns. They do not have the same heritage. But here we have 44, roughly, thousand drivers all working together. Okay, now the implications of this are mind boggling. But understand something very important. This convoy, yes, it does represent what their concerns are, and I have looked into the concerns. I'm looking into the long range side. You take 44,000 delivery trucks, and rest assured, truckers, and my understanding is very limited, but I do not see truckers as just delivery people. They are an entire way of life. Okay. Now, we've seen this happen with many of the motorcycle gangs. Now we've got the truckers doing something that is phenomenal. But understand, for those of you that are not involved in this, okay, now you can decide whether this is a good thing or a bad thing. That's up to you. I'm just reporting the way I see it as far as the facts I've been able to gather. The facts as I understand them to be. You take 44,000 delivery drivers out of circulation because of whatever reason. Okay, the implications are mind boggling because they're the ones that have been hauling the food, hauling the supplies, hauling the high technology, the distractions, the building materials. They're the ones that have been doing it. And if these people are all banding together across all kinds of heritages, all kinds of belief structures, okay, now like it or not, whether you believe in vaccinations or you don't, some truckers do, some don't. Doesn't matter. They're working together to get this same point across. Now, whatever the purpose is, whatever the individual drives are, the implications are simple. You've got 1,900 kilometers, or I think about 11,000 miles, but my math is probably off, of vehicles that are going the same direction. This is putting incredible just on the basics. Okay, and understand, when we're talking about the trucks, okay, trucks cost money to run. These guys are pulling it out of their own pockets. This is why the fundraiser was put together. Okay, that's why the fundraiser was set up. But you take that many vehicles going the same direction, a convoy means they're traveling the same path. Now they're following the laws. From what I gather, there is no functional dissidence here. But we have people from all walks of life, ages from beginning driving, try English, the beginning driver age, all the way up into your semi-retired ages. I suspect, and I do not know for certain, I suspect these same truckers, that some of them have retired and simply pulled their rigs out of mothballs, as it were, to join this. Okay. Now, I have done my best to stay out of this, which unfortunately means one of two things. Okay. Some people say if you either are with them or you're against them. And in all fairness, I'm simply against the conflict. But the reality is, these people have proven beyond a shadow of a doubt. Here is a group of people that are pulling together from every walk of life, every income level, and they are helping. They are working together. Now, I know, I haven't even looked at the convoy, to be honest. Okay, but like I said, I've avoided the news like the plague for a decade. So I'm not exactly your authority on what's going on. I just simply work with what I get passed on to me. But the concept is simple. You have all of these people pulling together. They go, okay, now get this. We are not talking about a natural disaster. Okay, we are talking about a common enemy. But the funny part is, and I use that term loosely, the really intriguing part is this is not Mother Nature creating the catastrophe. This is man. Okay, the stipulations that are being put in place, the restrictions that are being put in place, are now crippling the world. And the people that have held it together for quite literally for about a century, I think, and I don't know how far back it goes. Okay, but since truckers started hauling, since freight haulers started hauling things, this goes way back to when they were running trains and before that. These are the people that made sure that the foodstuffs got from the farms to the people that needed it, to you in the city. Okay, to you in the out in the countries where you couldn't get things. It's these delivery people that are making certain that you have the luxuries in life. Once again, they are coming out of the woodwork and they are working together. Now, if we can get the religious people to finally start working together, and I mean the so-called leaders, to start working together and promoting peace, equality, community, if we can get them to do that, or more to the point, when we get them to do that, you'll see this whole world take a change. At the same time, this kind of pressure, for those of you that were alive when the real push began for unions, okay, it was people from every walk of life pitching together. Yes, a lot of them were from the lower income end. or from what I call the working poor. And I think that's what other people call them. Okay, with some support from the upper echelon, because there are people that have a lot of money that are actually helping for no other reason than because it's the right thing to do. Okay. It's like I have, from my standpoint, yes, I'm finally stepping into things that I've been avoiding like the plague. Wasn't bothering dealing with the religious disparity, the breaks in racism and what have you. Well, now we have this other issue. We have reached a breaking point. It is time for people to realize that working together, we can turn this around. The time for fighting each other is over. Now, the silly part about it is, from what I gather, the people that are really at the heart of this whole thing, at least in Canada, have now essentially gone into hiding. Okay. Now, you only go into hiding if what you're doing, well, there's a couple of reasons to go into hiding. But one of the primary ones is if you know what is going wrong, what is wrong, and you know where you stand on it, or what your culpability is, you have one of two choices. Either step up and go, I screwed up, and now I've got to turn this around. This would be the effective thing to do. Now, like I said, I'm a spiritual guide and paranormal adept. There is a community that I work with called the Galactic Consortium, which is where multiple races are involved in various situations. Okay, they work together for the same purpose, but in their case, if they are asked to step down, they step down. If not, things get a little brutal. Well, right now we have a situation where the people in power at this point have got to look at the reality of the stress they're causing in their own yard. Because this convoy tells you flat out that the people have reached a breaking point. They're no longer willing to sit back and wait, which means something must be done. If not, it gets more complicated. Now, I don't know about you. Myself, not looking forward to what I'm seeing coming, and I'm hoping that this will help to settle things down. Not holding my breath. We have to realize that the thing that is crippling this country right now is frankly not the pandemic. It is now the actions of individuals using the pandemic as a problem now, or as a focal point. Now, something I do want to point out. I remember the Black Plague. The one thing I will say for what has been being done with this whole pandemic, it was absolutely the right move. Okay, it did slow down the spread of the pandemic, and it created its own problems. However, had the lockdown not happened as far as stopping people from moving around, the death toll would have been mind-boggling. As it was pretty astronomical. But the death toll would have been out of this world. So, forcing the separation, getting people to stay away from each other, was the right move. But they've let it go on too long. Yes, people have gotten sick, and I do feel for the people that have lost people to it. Members of my own family have come down with COVID. Fortunately, they've survived. Myself, didn't bother. I went for a tooth infection. Okay. Now, with this convoy, financially, I'm not in a position to do much, but I am in a position to say that this kind of maneuver is necessary and speaks to a far bigger problem than the individual concerns of the truckers. Okay, because right now, their actions, do I support them? Much like the military. Absolutely. And I'll tell you why. Like the people that have joined the military, okay, to defend their country, to defend their families, okay, I agree with that wholeheartedly. Okay, with the truckers that have donated their time, I don't think any of them are making money at this. They've donated their time and their livelihoods, as in, stop what they're doing to make this run. Okay, they are doing that not just for their benefit. They're doing it for ours. They're doing it for mine. They're doing it for yours. And they may not even know this. Okay, they may have their own individual, each individual trucker has their own reason for doing this. But the side effect is it will have an impact on the way that laws are being dealt with right now and on the way actions are being held. Okay. Like I said, you take roughly, as near as I can figure, about 44,000 rigs off the delivery market, and it's going to slow down delivery. Okay. Now, I will ask you to join me on this journey, absolutely, to help turn this around. Now, some of the truckers out there may well listen to this video. If so, I will say thank you very much for your help. I cannot imagine what kind of stress people are going through right now on the road. I'm reclusive. Okay, I stay in my own house for the most part. This is pretty much where people find me. Okay, do I have a problem with talking to people? No. Do I have a problem being around them? Yeah, I do. Absolutely. But that being said, this speaks to a much bigger issue. Okay, when you have the people that handle deliveries, that handle moving everything from fuel to food to luxuries, it doesn't matter. All of these things are being handled by truckers, by the delivery drivers. Now, truckers are a special breed unto themselves. They always have been. Okay, I think it was back in the late 70s, early 80s. There was a movie called Convoy. I do strongly recommend it. I always enjoyed watching shows like that. I've always liked the whole idea of the truckers. Years ago, I used to think, it would be nice. I could stay away from people. I could get on the road. I could just go and do my own thing. And then dawned on me my sense of direction would lead to a disaster, not to mention a bad leg. So I never went down that road. At this point, I drive very little, but I do understand the import of the truckers and how difficult that drive is. For that many of them from that many walks of life to turn around and go, this is where we're standing. This is something we believe in, regardless of our backgrounds, regardless of our heritage. We're sitting here. We are joining together on one journey, one long caravan, a long convoy. And rest assured, 1,900 kilometers is a long caravan. Now, I'm only surmising that since they're heading for Ottawa, I can only surmise that there's two convoys going on. One would have to come from the east, one would come from the west. If that's the case, then we're looking at an even bigger number of drivers. Okay. Now, thankfully, and hats off to you guys, horns on, whatever you want to call it. Okay. Following the rules of the road, following the rules, and in all fairness, it would be an absolute shame to find you not doing so, because it really is a testament to your own profession that you're following the rules of the road while you're doing this. Now, I can well imagine how upset some people are. Okay. But everything I've been hearing says this has been a peaceful convoy. Okay. And, I can just picture what people are going through, and I should probably look into it myself on occasion. But I've managed to build my own little world where I do pick up the information, obviously, and I have to communicate with some people. But I've stayed out of the mainstream for a very long time, but it looks like it's about time I stepped up and said, okay, what's going on? Okay, now understand, everything I talk about, the tools I offer, the philosophies that I expound, these are things that I personally live by. This is not a question of my telling you, be nice, and I go out and scream at everybody. when I do go out, I do my best to be congenial to people. I do my best to talk to people in a positive fashion, and I encourage you to do the same. But these truckers that are out there, okay, quite frankly, loosely put, my hats are off to you, and my hat is off to you. Because you're doing something that there is no way in this world that at this point I could do. I could undoubtedly go out, learn how to drive a rig. I could absolutely go out and do so. I would hurt like the dickens in all likelihood because my leg doesn't work right. And I know some of you that are driving are fighting your own issues like arthritis. Some of the seniors out there still have their own arthritis, their own aches and pains that they deal with. Because let's face it, sitting in a rig for 8-10 hours a day, day in, day out, is not an easy life. But these people have all put their lives on hold to run this convoy to make a point. Now, at this point, they're making a point to Canada. But here's the thing. From what I gather, okay, that point is being broadcast, obviously, on the internet. It's being broadcast all over the place. Okay. And from what I gather, some countries are saying we're not going to show this particular news coverage because it's disrupting things. It's creating a problem and may trigger other similar situations in our country. Well, like it or not, and I do feel for you. I do feel for the other countries. But here's the thing. Apparently, Australia and France have gotten so fed up with the restaurants being locked down, with being told they cannot go out and visit without getting vaccinated, which means the vaccines are no longer voluntary. In those countries, apparently, they have gotten to the point that they're moving the restaurants outside. People are taking their picnics outside of the restaurants. They're refusing to go into the restaurants. And I don't know if this is the vaccinated and the unvaxxed. All I know is that people are getting together and they're saying, we don't like the way this is being handled. The rulings on it are unfair, they are not balanced, and therefore we're no longer tolerating it. Now, with the truckers, they've gone, let's band together across all kinds of communities, all kinds of situations. In Canada, we have small towns, we've got big towns, we got cities, right? And there are delivery drivers and truckers in every one of them. Any place that has a small conglomeration of people has at least one gas station. Okay. And therefore, it's the truckers that are coming in to make sure that gas is there to enable these people to drive, to enable these people to run the farming units, to run the farms. And when you think about that, okay, all of these people are speaking up for all of you. Every one of them is speaking up for you, whether or not that was their intention. That is what's happening. Okay, and I'm absolutely certain there's got to be some of them that have gone, hey, this is kind of a trippy little thing. I want to be a big part of this big event. The last time I heard of something this big, okay, I wasn't physically alive this lifetime for. I don't think. Well, maybe I was. I don't even remember when it was. Now I'm curious. What I'm actually looking up here is when Woodstock was. Now, half of you probably remember. I'm the right age for it, I think. But that being said, I'm just looking up what year it actually was. Oh, I was alive. Look at that. Woodstock 1969 was the last time a whole bunch of people from a whole lot of different places got together and worked towards the same thing. Now, granted, Woodstock was a party. This is a message. We have to go back to the War of Independence, to the Boston Tea Party, this sort of thing, to look at when people from every walk of life all of a sudden went, we've had it. It's time to pull together. Okay, it's time to remember that, yes, politicians set the country in motion, but let us understand something very, very important. The government is necessary. This is not an overthrow thing. Governments are necessary. Absolutely, for society to evolve, they are. But the government is supposed to be, as it was put in the US, it was put, and I may be paraphrasing, and for that I'll apologize, but I'm no historian. I believe it was put a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. The people are not supposed to be answering to the government. The government is supposed to be answering to the people. Now, absolutely, there are times when governments have to make major decisions that affect people against their will. Okay, for the safety of the people, as evidenced by the issue that I mentioned a couple of weeks back regarding what was done between church and state to stop a famine centuries back. They pitched together, people were not listening, and the government had to step in to protect them. What's going on right now is no longer protection. Okay, now I don't know all the science behind the whole pandemic thing. I do know there's a second pandemic that's been taking place, and I am so happy to see it taking place at this point. Okay, and that is the pandemic that is running hand in hand is the pandemic of apathy. Okay, where people have reached a point they've just started giving up. But surprise, surprise, the truckers of this nation have said, enough. We have taken enough. It is now time to stand up and do something, even though we're tired. They go through the same problems we go through. But they're going, even though I am tired, I'm getting in my rig and I'm going to go on this. I would love to know who came up with the idea to start with, although it is kind of irrelevant at this point. But it's one of those things that really I would love somebody to find out who did it. I would, just for personal edification, I would love to know. Okay, now with that in mind, I'm going to bring this to a close. But if you liked my video, give me a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, because there's a lot more information coming out. Okay, and I am, as you noticed, I've started looking at the bigger pictures. I've been avoiding the news because, quite frankly, it usually ends up lying to me anyway. But the information I get from people is proving extremely valuable, in spite of my being rather reclusive. So, I will be back again tomorrow. Until then, take care of yourselves and each other, and for pity's sakes, stay positive.